Our room, and most of the governors are back, with the exception of Governor Clark, who would not be joining us for the next session anyway. I understand that we have Ms. Irwin. Are you on the line?
I am. Good afternoon. I will now turn on my video.
Good afternoon, Ms. Irwin. Apologize that
Hello.
we were running a little late this morning. Our original plan was to have all of the candidates do their presentations in the morning, as well as the question and answer, and then followed by the vote. But we ran behind, and unfortunately that could not happen. So appreciate your willingness to come back here at 1:10 and do your presentation. As you may have heard earlier, the candidates are limited to 10 minutes initial presentation, and then we've expanded the question and answer period to 15 minutes. 3 questions have already been provided to you, and we'll read those questions and then have you answer them. And then the Board of Governors will be able to ask you additional questions. So with that, I will turn it over to you for your introductions and welcome.
Thank you, President Cicchetti. I would like to make a request that as I get about 2 minutes to the 10-minute mark, that you alert me and let me know. I should be able to close any thoughts I have
We will do
at
that.
that point. I
You bet.
appreciate that. My name is Crystal Olivia Irwin. I have been an attorney in good standing with the Bar Association since 2011. I chose this background, even though all of our candidates are, of course, required to be from the dry side of the state, to illustrate a story and to start an introduction, because this is where I began my activism. This is where I raised a child. This is where I ran for office a few times, and where I began practicing law. But the story is a little more involved with that. So I asked for permission to be able to share the screen because I have some visual aids in telling my story. I got the idea, President Cicchetti, from a comment you made either at the previous meeting or the meeting before that, talking about how someone should write a book about what it's like to be dropped in the middle of the legal version of Northern Exposure 2. And so I'm going to do my mini version of that, if I may. And so in my 20s, I was an activist in Seattle, and my day job was working in the administration of more than one human service-oriented nonprofit, notably United Way of Kane County in their planning and distribution department, where I supported a number of volunteer boards in assessing agency performance and facilitating the funding process for over 135 member agencies and some number of grantees. Each year we would do some assessment of community needs. Each year we would do some form of community input gathering. And also had an opportunity to work with Lutheran Community Services Northwest in their permanency planning and refugee foster care programs. And then suddenly, I was going to show you a picture of my more, I did street theater as a part of my activism. This is me going to school at UW. And I had just taken a constitutional law class that particularly offended me about the system. And so I walked through campus as justice, shot in the chest, and you can see some of the reaction there that I am getting. And so I just wanted to kind of illustrate how passionate I've been about policy as well as law, even before obtaining a degree or a law license. Part of that, as I said before, were campaigns for office. the first campaign for mayor, over 1,100 people took the time to write me in as opposed to the incumbent. And in 2005, I came in third. In between those times, while I was, there's a shot of me in a forum with Mayor Nichols at the time. And I guess at this point, I should mention that I do very much appreciate the majority of the governors putting in their vote for openness of this process. I'm a very big fan of the OPMA, and I am used to public discourse, and I think that it's very important. One thing I was going to suggest in the future, if these are done by Zoom, that the candidates could maybe be put into a breakout room, and then they have a chance to exclude everyone else too. So no one could be left out of the exclusion. So during my time at UW, I had an opportunity to intern with the Oakland, California prosecutor's office in their advisory division. And that was a great experience. This is me partying with some of our Supreme Court justices as part of a icebreaker at a student event. That's another treasured memory. I did eventually graduate, and I wouldn't have been able to do so without my daughter Jasmine's love and support. And so I'm hoping certainly that her opportunities in the future are greater than mine. So I wanted to touch on something because, of course, after you graduate and you have to jump over this thing called the bar. And it's relevant to the conversation that the Board of Governors has been having over the bar and what it should look like and what it should consist of. And I just wanted to point out that my own experiences with the bar, which I took 7 times, gave me, I think, a more intimate knowledge of some of the problems in the currently structured bar process. I dare say that I know more about taking the bar and its exclusionary characteristics than anyone in the room. But you could read more about that. I did eventually join you, of course. I just took a longer way there. And in the course of that, I had to rely on assistance through the Work First program, or through TANF, which required participation in the Work First program. And so even before I got my license, I took that opportunity to raise constitutional issues about this program, which mandated at least 35 hours of sitting in front of a computer for a program that contained over 99% women. And so the case raised issues of law and policy surrounding that issue, and it's something that I'm actually quite proud of, even though it's controversial. During my time between graduating and becoming an attorney, I was a volunteer and a member of the board of the League of Women Voters of Greater Seattle, and an answer to one of the questions that was provided to us. My relevant experience here would be voter outreach and the facilitation of numerous events and moderation of forums, all in the interest of promoting civics and community education in the areas of law and legislation. I'm not afraid to do the grunt work of endless meetings. This is me doing a bit of advocacy, opposing a couple of charter amendments for the city of Seattle, just to illustrate some of my experience in that respect. This is me explaining to then Council Member Nick Licata how wrong he was about the structure of government. And that was a relationship that the campaign offered those relationships. And so.
Ms. Irwin, you have
Yes.
2 minutes remaining in your 10 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So the story, when I first got my license, I actually got called away to the opposite end of the state in Republic, Washington, which is as different from Seattle as we could possibly get. This was my storefront. I have been a solo, almost exclusively low bono attorney for the 10 years that I have been an attorney, earning annual commendations for that service. But of course, it's not incredibly lucrative, but it has given me a great background in underserved communities and areas of reform of systems delivery. So there are a couple of articles. I did run for prosecutor in that community. I also wanted to quickly show you what happens because I know that the Board of Governors had a chance to see a disciplinary information. And I have to admit that I do have an admonition over a fee agreement, but I just wanted to show you what the general public can do with that information. Evidently, that's me. This is somebody who has it in for all kinds of attorneys, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about that. But it's something to keep in mind when lawyers are being disciplined. This is my husband and I. This is the one thing I took away from Ferry County. I now practice in Colville, which is there in relation to Seattle. And I've had a relatively successful campaign for a judge in this area, garnering 25% of all 3 counties of Pend Oreille, Stevens, and Ferry. And since then, I have been the principal attorney of Irwin Law Firm, and I'm happy to engage in dialogue.
Thank you, Ms. Irwin. Perfect timing. I have 10 minutes exactly. With that, we have 3 questions that Executive Director Nevitt will read and then give you the opportunity to respond.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Irwin. Okay, the first question is, what experience do you have that is related to the WSBA mission?
I believe, as I explained in my presentation, that I have a personal and intuitive knowledge of many of the subjects that are currently on the docket for the Board of Governors. I believe that my experience working on aspects of systems delivery, my experience with the bar exam, my experience as a litigator, my experience as a solo attorney, my experience as a low bono attorney, my previous work in human services and the intersection of human services and legal services in our system. I believe also I'm an out-of-the-box thinker, and that I think that that's something that the board could benefit from. I think that my communications experience and my passion for some of these issues will help keep the meetings lively. I, as I said, do have moderation experience. I think a president is in some respects a glorified moderator, but I do have that experience. I think there's something also to be said about identity, and I think I've come before the governors before in saying that. I think that I can help shape the identity that the bar is in need of restructuring right now. Governor Williams-Ruth had mentioned in a previous meeting something about the horrible origin story of the bar. And I agree, but to the extent I would go a lot further back in terms of that, where that story begins. But ultimately, how do you rewrite that story, but to actually take action and put action behind your words? So looking at this process in the whole, unfortunately, it seems that it is in large part predestined what the Board of Governors is going to choose to do today. But that made it all the more important to me to put the wild card option out there, to put action behind your words in terms of gender diversity, ethnic diversity, neurodiversity, philosophical diversity, geographical diversity, and diversity in practice. I think the composition of the Board of Governors is kind of heavy on the private practice or corporate law and prosecutorial end. I think that I could lend in a differing perspective of the processes that we discuss from the perspective that does not come from inside government, that does not come from a large firm or environment. And I think that that might be very, very helpful.
Thank you. And the second question is, what qualities do you think make for a successful WSBA president?
I think that first you'd have to define what success is. Success, in my mind, would be that at the end of a term, any term that I had, that that action was taken, number one, and that people feel heard and people feel represented. I feel that my knowledge and experience allows me to relate to different populations and different customers inside and out. My administrative experience would make me an excellent liaison between the Board of Governors and the staff of the WSBA. I think that we do, as an organization, really need to work, as I say, on identity. And I think that I can facilitate that conversation and open up those ideas. So much of what we all do, it relies on the past. Precedent, stare decisis. And it's present in anything that the Board of Governors has done, because it's like, well, we want to reach out for something new, but we have to hold on to the past. And so I think what I offer is an opportunity to break away from that, and that would be a good thing.
All right, and the final of the preset questions is, as a board member, what would you do to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion on the board itself and in the profession as a whole?
Well, be present, to embody it, to be inclusive, to keep the lines of communication open, all the way open. As I'm going to refer back to transparency, because I think that the board can do more in terms of that. As I said, I represent personal diversity and have dealt with varying populations and constituents, and I feel quite comfortable in that role. And I think that there's something intangible. There's just sort of an energy that you must convey. If it comes down to well, let me put it another way. I guess I could refer to some technical things. Going back to the origin story, or the idea of inclusion or exclusion, I think that we need to start quite early in advocating access to legal education, and that the Band-Aid measures, what I would consider Band-Aid measures of the scholarships and the special programs in college, or even the LLT program, as an effort to try to include more people. When this whole structure is built on exclusion, it starts quite early, the exclusion between those who are more literate or overachievers, those who have the opportunity to go to law school because of the immense proposition it represents. Look at the entire experience of going through law school, trying to jump over these hoops, and then get into a profession that doesn't quite support diversity in so many ways. Appointment processes, contracting, all those microaggressions that some of us might experience in the workplace and in the courtroom. I believe that we should be more active, that the bar should not rely just on complaints, but to also actively audit courtroom proceedings, and to be quite more aggressive in publicly taking action. Words are okay. I've watched you guys thither painfully over the wordsmithing of the words to express your desire to be inclusive. But it stops there usually. The restructuring committees, the bar restructuring workforce, I might be getting that wrong, came back with no suggested changes. Change means change. You can't get something different by doing the same things the same way. And so, again, breaking away from old habits, old origin stories, that's what I hope to contribute.
Thank you, Ms. Irwin. As a reminder, we have about 6.5 minutes remaining for questions. I see Governor Knight's hand. If there are other governors would like to speak, also raise your hand. Governor Knight.
Thank you, President Cicchetti. Thank you, Ms. Irwin, for your application and for your opening remarks. I really appreciate you throwing your name in the hat and getting to know you both in this context and as well as your application for the at-large seat last year. I want to give you the opportunity to speak on specific policy issues. I have 3 questions for the benefit of my fellow governors who may also want to ask a question. I would appreciate it if you could give a concise answer. The first question is, should the WSBA mandate that attorneys purchase malpractice insurance as a condition of active membership?
No. No, as a solo low bono attorney, I can tell you that it makes all the difference. My office actually is technically closed now due to COVID and other issues, but had it not been, malpractice insurance was, and I guess still is, a concern. Not all of us work for firms that can pay that type of overhead. Not all positions that attorneys hold are appropriate, and not too many people know, and maybe this is for the benefit of any public members or members of the public who may be watching. The malpractice insurance for attorneys does the opposite of what other forms of insurance does. If you have a policy for your automobile and you're a good driver, your rates go down. For an attorney, the longer you are an attorney, the rate goes up because there's a longer period of time that the attorney must be covered for. And so these and other concerns would make, I've already given my feedback, written feedback to the committees, and it keeps coming up because it seems to me this is not the first time that the question has come up. My own feeling on that is that if those who believe that this is a good idea, find a way to fund it. Find a way to fund it to where we're not fending for ourselves in a competitive but locked up market.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Governor Knight, will you maybe ask one of your questions so we have 2 more? We have 4 minutes remaining.
In June 2020, our Supreme Court sunsetted its LLT program. In your opinion, did our Supreme Court make the right decision?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. I told you my route to law school was not the usual one. I did certainly look at the clerkship program and any other option besides the formidable idea of law school. But as I look at the requirements and what you get for the effort, I would say that it would not have been worth it for me to engage in that program because it's all of the requirements, but none of the perks of being a full-fledged lawyer. And also, I think that what could address the issues involved much better is to make legal education more affordable, more accessible, so that there can be more practitioners that don't just know one area of law, that are familiar with the property issues and the financial issues that often arise out of those limited areas. And so there's a concern as to whether those who are being serviced by limited law technicians are really, getting the full meal deal, so to speak. It's something, and I certainly don't mean to take away from the quality of those people and the need for that service, but I would focus on legal education.
Governor Hunter Abel. We have 1 minute, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Ms. Irwin. And let me just echo Governor Knight saying thank you so much for your application. As a proud native of Ferry County, I was delighted to see somebody from the Tri-County area throw their hat in the ring. And I think I recognize that photo of you and your husband. Looks like that might have been in the Ferry County District Court courtroom. But at any rate, my question for you is the same as I've been posing to the other candidates. A unique facet of our time seems to be the declining public trust in institutions, whether it's the media, the public, our political branches, the bench, and the bar. And so I would be interested in hearing from you what you would do to build the public's and the members' trust in this institution if you were selected to be our president-elect. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'll start at the end of your question. What I suggest is an emphasis on transparency and communication, not just the communication where someone's complaint goes on record, but that there's actual momentum in addressing instead of restating the issues. And, it's tough for me to address that question because I think there are good reasons for the public and for attorneys to lose heart. And in fact, after 10 years of it, I'm not sure that it's the privilege that for everyone that it's cracked up to be. And my application before you is in part out of, I don't want to say desperation, but sort of, I'm ready to quit litigating. I'm looking for ways to address the injustices that I've seen. And if I can't do it from the inside, maybe the best thing is to do it from the outside. But I want to have faith in the good lawyers that I do know are there, the judges that I know are trying to get it right. But especially this past year, every single civil right anybody had has deteriorated due to emergency orders, and that has impacted the poor and those of color more than anybody else. So there's definitely a need for that.
Governor Williams-Ruth, we have about 30 more seconds. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have two quick questions. One, Ms. Irwin, do you believe that applicants need to take a bar exam to become licensed? And two, how much time do you think it takes to be president of the WSBA?
I'll just tell you that that one of the surprises I got out of law school was that there was this whole left turn you had to make and pay for, which is bar prep. And I am convinced that any middle schooler can take a bar prep course and not get a degree and pass the bar. And that's coming from someone who failed the bar 6 times. There is a certain, the skills that it tests are quite limited, and I don't think that a bar, yes, as so many people have said, there must be some qualification process, but does it have to be the procession, the beat down that we've all gotten that excludes 40% of us before we even get to try to pay back our student loans? Yeah, something's wrong.
Thank you, Ms. Irwin.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I was just the follow-up of how much time do you think it takes to be president of the bar?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Well, it seems to me that the time required, let's see, the board materials were about 100 pages long, some give or take. So there's document review. There is the 2-day meeting each month. There might be other commitments that go along with that I would say would take about, I'd say 15 to 20 hours a week. And I guess I could say, well, due to COVID and what have you, I'm available. So I wouldn't lack the time to devote.
Thank you, Ms. Irwin. We're a little bit over time, but that's all right. Okay, Thank you so much for appearing today and presenting and answering our questions. We will
Thank you for
next.
having me.
Thank you. And so we'll need Ms. Irwin to, she can stay for the next portion. All right, you're invited to stay. And President Majumdar will let Mr. Brecky and Governor Clark know that they can come back into the room. The next portion of this process is the discussion, and that will be an opportunity for the members of the Board of Governors to deliberate and discuss the various candidates. And I will also allow some public comment from members of the audience and folks on the video virtually. Executive Director Nevitt.
And I just want to remind the governors that you received a ballot in your email. If you have not received it, please let Paris or Shelley or me know right away. Thanks.
Mr. President, point of order.
Governor Higginson.
I don't believe it's appropriate under the bylaws to allow public comment. This is a board decision and a board deliberation, and it's not policy we're setting. It's an election, so I would ask that you not allow public comment. I don't believe it is proper under the bylaws.
It is, as has been our practice in the past, to have public comment. Because I vividly remember my year when several members of the public did talk. But maybe perhaps that's a question for General Counsel Shankland to take a look at our bylaws to see if that is prohibited. And if it is, then of course we do not want to violate our bylaws. So that'll give General Counsel Shankland a little bit of time. Welcome back, Governor Clark and Mr. Brecky and Ms. Irwin, who's remaining on the phone, virtual. This is, as I said, the opportunity for the Board of Governors to deliberate and discuss. I will recognize virtual hands. First, I saw Governor Stevens, and he put his hand down. Oh, no, you're still up.
No,
Governor Stevens, followed by Governor Williams-Ruth, followed by Governor Abel.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. And I'm hoping we get a ruling from or a opinion from General Counsel regarding the opportunity for the public to weigh in. And I'm going to speak to that because, you know, at times I'm just baffled when, on the one hand, we speak about wanting to hear from, wanting to engage with, wanting to involve our members. And then we take a different posture, which is, well, no, this is just our conversation. And so I just want to say to my colleagues, no, I want to hear from members who may be out there before I cast a vote. You know, I certainly understand hearing from the rest of you governors, but I certainly would like to know if there are members of our association who have watched this proceeding, have read the materials or whatever, and have opinion. You know, I want to hear that before I cast my vote. Otherwise, I want us to get off of this for the members, and then, well, not now, not in this instance. I think that's problematic, and I think it's actually an insult and a slam to members, especially members who take the time to come to this meeting, sit in through hours, and then told, you can't talk, we don't want to hear from you.
Thank you, Governor Stevens. General Counsel Shanklin, I'll let you jump in ahead of time if you want to talk first.
So the only language in the bylaws is what we've talked about before. Discussion of the candidates will be in public session. So there's no limit on who can participate listed in the bylaws.
Thank you, General Counsel Shanklin. Governor Williams-Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. President. Given that this is my first election for president-elect, I'm not exactly sure of the protocol for discussion, given that last year there was only a single candidate who we look forward to his tenure next year. But I just want to say that I found Treasurer Clark's argument for his candidacy to miss the point of where I believe he was the strongest candidate. Because as I asked in my question, one of our greatest chief justices was not a judge before he was appointed. He was the governor of California, and it was a political dealing made with Eisenhower. The Seattle Public Schools had one of their most arguable best superintendents was a former Army general who had never had any educational experience. And I say this because as I'm planning to cast my vote today, I want anyone who's in the public that's watching that's not a Board of Governors member to know that it is absolutely not a prerequisite to earn my vote to have been the treasurer or the a member of the Board of Governors. I think, in my humble opinion, that where Treasurer Clark would excel is in all of just his entire lived experience. As someone who shares a disability that I have been railing against since I joined this board regarding dyslexia, and that the late materials and the late materials, I am hoping that having Treasurer Clark in that role will actually move this association and change as we work with members of our association that do have different abilities. And so his point being that he will be a groundbreaking president is what moves me to ultimately know that I'm going to be casting my support for him. But I want everyone to listen, to know that if anyone comes out next year that's not a Board of Governors member, that is not a way that's not a prerequisite for me. You can be an amazing candidate without ever sitting on this group. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Governor Williams-Ruth. Governor Abell.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'd like to echo Governor Williams-Ruth's comments about outside candidates putting in their names for service as the president-elect. I also think it's healthy to get outside candidates. And I want to say that I am pleased with the choices that we have here. I'd like to thank all three candidates for putting their names in. I will be enthusiastically voting for Governor Clark for the position of president-elect, and for three reasons. First, we've all seen that he is a servant leader for this organization. He has dedicated just truly extraordinary amounts of time to this organization and this profession, the members and the public. And he has a really unparalleled track record of doing so. Also, it is very helpful that he knows how the money is spent and how this organization runs financially. I think that is an invaluable asset to somebody serving in the position of president-elect and president. There are two other reasons I'd like to talk about, and one of them goes to his professional background. I think it's helpful to have a government lawyer serve in this position. It's unusual, but as a former government lawyer, I know that the perspective is different, and I think it's important, and I think it will be helpful for this organization, both as we go about the process of making our decisions, but also as we go about the process of communicating with our partners and our stakeholders. And I think Governor Clark's background and experience as a government lawyer is going to be helpful with that. And then the last piece is something that Governor Williams-Ruth alluded to, is with regard to kind of the unique quality that Governor Clark has with regard to his speech disability that he has talked about openly and candidly in his time on the Board of Governors. And I think this is a unique opportunity. I want to make clear, I'm not voting for Governor Clark because he has a speech disability. I'm voting for Governor Clark because of the things I've already talked about. But I think this is a unique opportunity to potentially redefine what it means to be an effective communicator within our profession. And I think he's going to do it. I'm excited to see how he communicates with the members and the public if he's elected over the course of his year as president. So I will be enthusiastically voting for him. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Governor Abell. Governor Knight.
Thank you, President Schicchetti. I will also be voting for Governor and Treasurer Dan Clark. I want to share a brief story of some of my first interactions with Governor Clark. I first started on this board in 2018. Governor Clark was already on the board. Very early on in my service as governor, this board faced a transformative decision, and that was who was going to be our executive director. Governor Clark and I voted in opposite ways on that issue. It's a secret to no one that the vote on the executive director was an extremely divisive vote. It drew a harsh line between the governors. It was nasty. It was personal. It reflected, in some ways, poorly on the board. Governor Clark transcended that divide. Governor Clark understood that it is important for the board to speak with a unanimous voice. Even though Governor Clark was in the minority on that issue, he accepted the majority's decision and he put forward the best image of the board that he could. I'm a big advocate of open debate of policy issues. I think we've fundamentally failed at our job if virtually every decision we make is a unanimous rubber stamp decision. If that's the case, we haven't obtained a diverse board that we need to obtain. But we have to do it in the right way. And Governor Clark does it in the right way. That's particularly important in the role of president. The role of president generally doesn't have a vote except to break a tie. Governor Clark understands that we're going to be facing important substantive issues. He understands that the board will speak with a voice of a majority vote, and he will do an excellent job at representing the majority vote, regardless of whether it's how Governor Clark would vote in his individual capacity. He understands the nature and the role of president. His comments hit the nail on the head, that the policy is made by the board and the president carries out that policy. He was absolutely right in indicating that we've had issues where presidents see that differently, where presidents see their role as being able to veto or overtake the board. Governor Clark doesn't see it that way. Governor Clark is a true servant. Governor Clark understands the intricacies and the role of the Board of Governors, and this organization is going to be in excellent hands with Governor Clark as our president.
Thank you, Governor Knight. I still see Governor Williams-Roof's hand and Governor Abel's hand. If you have additional comments, I will entertain those before moving on. I see that both hands have been lowered. All right. Any other governors have any thoughts, comments? Governor Stevens.
Yeah, Mr. President, I do, but I would like to hear from Mr. McPherson, and then any other member before I speak.
Okay, so let's make sure that all of the governors have had a chance to offer their thoughts before we turn to Mr. McPherson. I'm going to pause. Governor Higginson. Governor Higginson, you're on mute.
Thank you. I've had the privilege of working with Dan since I joined the board 3 years ago. I'm about to head into my 4th year on the board. I have been consistently impressed with all the things that he has known about the organization, his willingness to share his knowledge with the less experienced governors, myself included. When I first joined the board, he was the only governor who reached out to me and said, can I explain to you some of the background so that it'll help you get up to speed more quickly? I was greatly appreciative of that. I've found him to be thoughtful. He has institutional knowledge that exceeds most people's. He works harder than anyone I know, and I put in a lot of hours myself. I never shy away, as anybody knows, from working on committees or helping with drafting. I consider myself a hard worker. He puts me to shame. I think his background, his qualifications, his ability to forge positive relationships with everyone from, if we were in Congress, I would say both sides of the aisle, but I will just say divergent viewpoints, has been exemplary. And I do think that he will be an excellent leader. I also value the continuity of him being able to work as the president-elect to support Brian Tollefson. We've seen how important those partnerships are. Witness Kyle and Rajiv working so closely together for the good of the organization. So I'm going to be voting for Dan. And that is not to denigrate our other candidates. I'm very appreciative of their time in putting themselves forth. And I know it's not easy to offer yourself as a candidate. And so I want to say thank you to those people, but I will be voting for Dan.
Thank you, Governor Higginson. I note that we have been joined by Chief Justice Gonzalez. Welcome, Chief Justice. The item that I think you are here, you're welcome to stay and listen. We're wrapping up the presidential election for president-elect. I do believe that you are scheduled to appear and talk on the Practice of Law Board report.
I'm here to observe it.
Observe it.
I'm just finally having my lunch, so I'll leave my camera off and please proceed.
Absolutely. We will be moving that up. So we'll get to that as soon as we are done with the president-elect election. So thank you for joining us. All right. I will go back to looking around, making sure I don't have any other governors. Not seeing any. Mr. McPherson.
Hello, everybody. I'm certainly interested in your discussion this morning. I think many of you know that I've attended these meetings since 1998, and I've actually commented on most of the president-elects, sometimes positively. Have had numerous people ask me to endorse them, and then I say, "Are you sure?" Because many that I have endorsed in the past were not successful. But regardless, I want to make a couple of comments about having more than one candidate. And many of you may not know that I was the chair of a task force for the WSBA on the election of presidents and whether they could be taken off the board prior to their finishing their term, and also how to encourage additional people to apply, and also whether we should have a different way of electing our governors in rotation through the counties that many of you are familiar with, informal rotation. So I've had quite a bit of background and experience in all of these areas. And I do want to echo the comment about it not being necessary to be a member or even have served on the board of governors to be an effective president. The first that comes to mind is Ellen Dial, who was successful and who, in fact, I actually did endorse. And she successfully became president. So I'm hopeful that each of you will accept your responsibility to reach out to our huge population to acquire additional extraordinary candidates. You don't have to be a member of the BOG to be a president, but you have to know the Bar Association. You can't just show up and say, "Hey, I've been a lawyer for 25 years and now I want to serve." Dan is the absolute opposite of that. And you, if any of you did read the letters, you'll saw mine. If for some reason it was bigger than everybody else's, I don't know why, but you'll see my personal comments about Dan. And I will say one thing that was semi hit upon, which is his ability to respectfully disagree. And I think maybe that was touched upon, but he will never, ever, ever take a position that is disrespectful. And I think it's exactly what the bar needs right now. And the other qualities that he has is that he is obviously one of the hardest working people I have ever seen come through this organization. And his ability to grasp ideas and to concisely and narrowly describe and explain and get to the point, it has been a critical characteristic that I think you will treasure. And with that in mind, I will say that I wish more of the public, and I guess I'm part of the public. I've been coming to these meetings for so long, I sometimes wonder whether I should have a little name tag. But let's get more people interested in this, okay? All of us, so that perhaps we can echo what I think Alec will probably be telling us, is that if we keep saying that we want to have transparency, let's reach out. Let's be more active in doing that. So it's obvious who I would recommend or who I would vote for should I be making that vote. Dan will make an excellent president. So thank you for these few moments.
Thank you, Mr. McPherson. All right, I do see still Governor Stevens' hand.
Yes.
I also want to make sure that everybody on this virtual meeting has had an opportunity, or in the room, if anyone from our audience wants to comment, I will entertain that as well. Not seeing any. Governor Stevens.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. So my friend Dan, it's been a long time since Alderbrook, and that's where you first became a governor filling the uncompleted term of Bill Pickett. I've really appreciated working with you. Before I say more, I want to say this to the other candidates, and I know I had expressed this to Mr. Brecky, but I do it as well for Ms. Irvin, which is, in the event you are not elected, my hope is this will not be the last time we hear from you. We are in great need of leadership in various aspects of the Bar Association. And so I hope that you will step forward in those various aspects, whether it's our boards, councils, commissions, committees, or sections. Because I think it is important that you get a stronger view of the association. And I appreciate your stepping forward, but I too need to know that there is a president who, whoever becomes the president-elect is still going to be drinking from a fire hydrant. But it's important to know what they're coming into and what they're getting. Now, my friend, we talk back and forth even about party politics. And I'm going to give you a compliment, but it's a compliment about a Democrat. So just as they said about Hillary Clinton, I must say about you, there is nobody I know who can ever outwork you. That's not going to happen. And I appreciate your heart, your commitment, and your determination to not only serve to lead, but lead to serve. And that's very important. So I look forward to this. I believe you will be elected. I'm certainly going to vote for you. It has been an honor and a great privilege to work with you. And the other thing some of you may or may not know, just as you hear my fire, I've heard some of Dan's fire. And we've had conversations where we've gotten really to know each other on a very personal and real and deep level. Dan, the association is going to be well served to have you as our president-elect and then our president. So just know you can count on me to have your back as you go through the first elect term and then your full term. I appreciate you, sir. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Governor Stevens. I only regret that you didn't say any of those things in favor of my candidacy a couple years ago.
You forgot I was your opponent?
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
One of your opponents.
Governor Peterson.
Yeah, I want to echo what other people have said. We really truly have three outstanding candidates, and before us today. And I don't want to, I think Dan knows I think he's great, and it's been a pleasure working with him. And I'd echo all the great things that the other governors have said. I would echo that, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows, and Dan knows, that I'll be voting for him with a hard yes. Given the fact we're doing this electronically, I won't be able to do that. So hard yes for Governor Clark.
Thank you, Governor Peterson. All right, we have way gone over time, and so I'm not seeing any other hands, so I'm going to wrap this up quickly. We are going to go into voting, so we'll proceed forward with the vote. We have designated I, as president, under the bylaws, that designate 3 people to oversee the election, including the executive director. I've enlisted the help of President-elect Tollefson and myself to oversee the election count. And Executive Director Nevitt is going to help us with the virtual aspect of this. Do we have paper ballots for the people here? We're
No.
all using ballots.
So everyone should go to all board members should go to their email now, and you can vote. And then the three of us will go to a computer out in the hallway and we will pull up the results. If there's a need for a runoff, you will get a second ballot.
All right. And that, why don't we estimate about 10 minutes or so? All right. So while we're voting, we'll go ahead and take a break, and then we'll come back as soon as we know what the results are, and we will announce them at that time. Congratulations, President-elect. I think that's what they called me. Clark, President-elect Clark, if you would like to type any words or anything for have Executive Director Nevitt relay them, we'll offer you the opportunity to do that.
I'll just say them. Thank you all so much. It's a real true honor, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, President-elect Clark.
Well said. Mr. President?
Yeah, hold on, Governor Stevens. Also would like to say thank you to Mr. Brecky and Ms. Irwin for throwing your hat into the ring, and Mr. Brecky for coming all the way here to Seattle. We appreciated the words that you said in your presentations, and as Governor Stevens said earlier, we hope both of you will stay involved, and we will see you in the future. But thank you. Governor Stevens.
Yes, Mr. President, and I am not intending to put him on the spot right now, but perhaps between now and our next meeting, we'll find out whether or not President-elect Clark will opt to take the course of past President Majumdar and resign as governor, or take the path of you, Mr. President, and remain as governor while he's president-elect. And I'm not asking him to make that decision today, unless he knows, but let us know soon so we know what to do. Congratulations, Dan.
President-elect Clark has some thinking to do, so we'll allow him some time to do that.